What would you say you do here?
Well, look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we cover the X-Men a little bit heavier here on Thinking Critical than probably any other brand in comic books. Even heavier than Batman and some things like that, because I have a special place in my heart for X-Men, and one of the key collaborators on the channel, Doc, he's the X-Men historian. He's literally read every single X-Men comic ever, and he likes to talk X-Men. We enjoy doing This Week in X-Men. So we get a lot of coverage. Now, I have speculated on the channel that one of the key problems with Ten of Swords and really the direction of X-Men currently is a lack of Jonathan Hickman actually being in the room. There isn't many indications that he's actively involved. You can see the storylines have degraded as far as quality for the most part, with a few exceptions here and there. Ben Percy's work on Wolverine has been sterling so far. I think Zeb Wells on Hellions has been really good, but even Jonathan Hickman's own X-Men series has seemingly gone downhill to a considerable degree since Dawn of X started. So it appears, just from my observation, that it's likely the Jordan White show. This week in AITP, they've been doing this series every Monday is like X-Men Monday. And this week, I guess, was the 100th episode of this column. So they were able to bring in all the creators from the X-Men Zoom calls and the Slack. It's very funny when they talk about Jordan White. There's an entire section at the end because apparently Jordan White helps AITP put this weekly article that they put together talking about X-Men on their website. He helps them do that. So there's a big section where all the creators and editors talk about Jordan White. And there's common themes throughout. Nicest guy in the industry. Best boss I've ever worked for. Whenever they talk about his work as an editor, though, it's always very generic. Best editor ever, great editor. They don't really go into details on things that he might have done for him. The most, I think Leah Williams said at one point she thought one of her characters' chest would pop out of their uniform, the way that it was drawn, and he greenlit her to fix that. There's another creator that worked on the MODOK series that said he provided feedback that was helpful, that he was able to improve his story using. But you never hear anyone in there saying, he was a great mentor. I'm a better writer because I worked with Jordan White. Like, he was able to improve my craft. It's just, he's the nicest guy you'd ever want to work for. And you kind of get that feeling with the way the X-Men is laid out, that there's not a lot of no coming out of Jordan White's way. And you definitely get the feeling that there's not a lot of Hickman there either. It's a really big article. I cannot go over all of it, and there's multiple answers to each question, but there were several that I thought were interesting. You should go read the Jordan White thing. It's pretty funny because no one ever says he's going to improve you as a writer. He's really nice and he's easy to work for. I thought that was funny. I think that's indicative of what we're seeing on the line. But there was a ton of questions. I've taken out a few that I thought were interesting. With the responses that I thought were worth talking about. And these are in order that they're in the AITP article. And here's the first question I want to talk about. What's one contribution you made to the X-Men mythos in the Krakoa era you're most proud of? Most people went in there and said, there was a character I always loved and I was able to bring back into the fold and, modernize him maybe for the current X-Men Krakoa era. I think Teenie Howard might have said, canonically speaking, part of the the Great Britain Corps, there's a purple baboon that's a member. That was her proudest accomplishment. Stuff like that. Most of it was about contributions, of what they were able to do to X-Men so far during their writing. Vita Ayala had the most interesting response. And I do think, let's get to it. This is what she said. Furthering the queer agenda. I get extra punches on my bakery loyalty card for it. You're a professional writer working on one of the most historic franchises in comic book history. The way I interpret that is her writing X-Men is furthering the queer agenda. I don't think it's anything that she's actually included in the stories yet. To my knowledge, I read the story that was in Ten of Swords. There was nothing about queer agenda in there. I read Children of the Atom. There's nothing really about queer agenda there. I do think that we're going to find out in the not too distant future that's allegory for trans people in today's society. We have humans that identify as mutants. That's why they couldn't go into Krakoa. I believe that's what that story is about, but that doesn't really figure into what she actually said. So I believe she's talking about herself as furthering the queer agenda, is like you have a queer creator on X-Men. When you think about it, when Dawn of X launched, after Hickman, did House of X Powers of 10, there were already multiple LGBTQ plus creators on the X-Men line. I believe Tini Howard, I believe Leah Williams identifies as well. Prior to that, during the X-Men Blue, Red, Gold, I believe Marco and Draco identifies as LGBTQ plus. Before that, I believe Kieran Gillen, who had one of the more standout, memorable runs on X-Men when it was really in its down period. Don't get Doc talking about that. Don't get him talking about Mr. Sinister. He'll get pissed. Obviously, he's LGBTQ plus. And then you think about one of the probably the most well-known X-Men run since Claremont, like Byrne days, is New X-Men by Grant Morrison, who's non-binary and said he's been non-binary queer since he was 10 years old. So there's been a lot of, I imagine those are just the creators that I know. I imagine there's far more than that, even that identify as LGBTQ plus that have worked on the X-Men line. And in order to be like the best-selling like queer creator, it's really hard, because if you look at Grant Morrison's New X-Men, I think it hovered between 140 all the way down. I think his lowest selling issue was 94,000. He was on the series for like 3 years. Had really, really good sales. Would blow almost anything besides like Batman out of the water right now. So the bar as far as queer or LGBTQ plus creators on X-Men is actually set pretty high by Grant Morrison and other creators, certainly Kieran Gillen. Then you think about like comic books in general. Frank Miller's Daredevil run is considered one of the greatest of all time. Now, Frank Miller, I don't believe is LGBTQ plus. If he is, I don't know that. But certainly Klaus Janson, who's heavily associated with that run, is. So you're talking about an LGBTQ plus creator that was on one of the greatest comic runs of all times. You could say that that's probably the greatest comic run, with an openly queer creator on it. So the representation has been there as far as queer LGBTQ creators in comic books for quite some time. And the bar is really, really high. There's been a lot of success. Now, should being a queer creator, being part of X-Men, something that Vita Ayala shouldn't be proud of? Well, absolutely. That should be something you're proud of. There's nothing wrong with being proud in what you're able to achieve, certainly within your own community. But you would hope that they would set the bar a little further. Like, how about being the best-selling queer creator in X-Men history? How about creating new characters? Do something new. I don't think Vita Ayala and other LGBTQ plus creators ever want to be called tokens, but with this response, that's almost what they're calling themselves. Vita Ayala's mere presence on an X-Men book furthers queer agenda, but it has nothing to do with what they created or what they added. So I thought that was like a really strange answer. It's almost like they didn't contribute anything to the X-Men mythos. That's not why Vita Ayala even believes that they were hired. So that's probably a good reason why Vita Ayala's X-Men stories don't stand out, and probably a good reason why her comic book stories in general don't stand out. Although I did give her contributions to Wonder Woman 750 like a 5-star, and I put it in my top 10 comic stories of the year, but that's easily the best thing that I've ever read by Vita Ayala. And maybe that's the reason that you don't see a lot of improvement with the writing, because Vita Ayala probably just understands that they're there to further the queer agenda and not really there to tell really good comic stories. That's just my take on that one. There's another question. What's a day in the life like for Moira McTaggart in the No Place? Obviously, this is harkening back to the stuff that we learned in House of X Powers of 10, Jonathan Hickman introduced. This has been, the Moira McTaggart, Moira X storyline. Like, Is something hanging over, like an ominous cloud over Dawn of X, now Reign of X. Like, what the hell's going on with this character? We learn these interesting things. She's essentially the cog, the central focus of where all of these stories come from. We have a new understanding of what X-Men is, the X-Men timeline, because of Moira McTaggart, Moira X. And we've been waiting for this to be addressed. I think we learned about her no place kind of early on in X-Men. We have not heard about the character since. I believe Jonathan Hickman is trolling people here. I don't think this is a good opportunity to troll. And the fact that Jonathan Hickman doesn't really do interviews anymore and hasn't for quite some time, doesn't really talk, probably not the best opportunity in the world to start trolling the readers that are probably a little bit frustrated and why we haven't seen Moira X, Moira McTaggart furthering in that storyline. This is what Jonathan Hickman has to say. Shit, I totally forgot about Moira. I believe I'm pretty sure he's trolling people, but there's a good chance that's true because they have not revisited, even though that's something I think a lot of people that were interested in House of X Powers of 10 would like to see addressed. It's something people want to learn more about and want to know what Moira is doing. What's her part in all of this? What is she doing behind the scenes? But I don't know. Either Jonathan Hickman forgot he needed to readdress that, or he's totally screwing with people. Not the best look either way, in my opinion. There's another question. As writers and editors, do you find X continuity to be a creative hindrance, a creative blessing, or something else entirely? Jerry Duggan. It's a soap opera. We take what we want and ignore what we want to drive by. So essentially, you didn't know that you were reading the Marvel Omniverse, but at least within the X-Men franchise, it is the Omniverse method. Everything happened depending on if the writer decided it did or not. If they don't want that to be part of continuity, it didn't happen. If that's a part of the story that they're telling, that was in continuity. I imagine that's very disappointing. When you have a shared connective universe, the continuity and the connective tissue is one of the things that keeps you coming back for more. One of the reasons you invest in multiple titles. Maybe you read things that maybe you're not that interested in, but it's key and central maybe to other portions of the universe that you're reading at that time. To see Jerry Duggan give such a flippant response to a question like that kind of tells you all you need to know. So when you're reading this story, and I've certainly theorized myself that there's a reason all the characters feel off. There's a reason a lot of this stuff does not make sense within the X-Men continuity. There's a reason, Beast feels so different. Like he doesn't feel right. There's a reason Charles Xavier doesn't feel right. And it's all because of the story. Jonathan Hickman is playing the long game, people. That's what's happening. It might not be. They might just be changing everything because they want to. Because as Jerry Duggan says, it's a soap opera. We take what we want, baby. Whatever we don't want, we drive by. Jordan White, the editor, this is what he has to say. Maybe this will be even more indicative of what's wrong with the X-Men line. The only place where a story can go on for 60 years and not have huge continuity errors is in actual real life. And even there are some inconsistencies that pop up once in a while. Yes, people are complex. But he's basically like, listen, it's comics, baby. It's been going on for 60 years. Got to have continuity errors. We can't work our hardest to make sure that the continuity errors are minimized to the largest degree possible. You just have to accept them. If we didn't get this character right, it's 60 years, baby. What am I supposed to do? I'm just the group editor. I'm just the guy that's supposed to know everything about X-Men in Marvel Comics. I don't believe he's known to be quite as knowledgeable as Tom Brevoort, but from what I'm told, the man is close to an encyclopedia of nerd knowledge. But as you can see here, it doesn't matter, baby. Inconsistencies, they happen. It's 60 years. Who cares if that's what the readers expect? And when they point things out, it's like, well, whatever. It didn't matter anyway. It's just a soap opera. It's just a soap opera. It doesn't matter how much time or money you invested in these things. You couldn't dare expect us to take the time or the courtesy to make sure that your universe and stories make sense. I hope people can understand the sarcasm that's coming out there. Next question. Could you talk about how this event, talking about the Hellfire Gala, came to be and how fun it's been to plan? Now, like I said, there are multiple answers to all these questions. I'm not going to talk about all of them. This is Jerry Duggan. This will be very informative about why this Hellfire Gala thing doesn't seem so important. It was a party that was going to happen in the Marauders, regardless of how it lined up with the rest of the line. But at our last in-person retreat in Chicago, it became clear that it would be good for all of us. A 12-issue crossover X-Men event that was supposed to be a storyline in Marauders. And perhaps that's why the Hellfire Gala doesn't seem as important as Jordan White and the other creators of the X-Men line would like you to believe. Because it wasn't supposed to be important. It was supposed to be a brief moment in time in one of the series. And of course, it's now been ballooned up. It's going to cross into every single X-Men series out there besides X-Men Legends. Thank goodness. We can still read X-Men Legends without having to get into this crap. And this is how things become unseemly. This wasn't supposed to include all the other titles. It wasn't supposed to include X-Men. It wasn't supposed to have a planet-sized X-Men. It certainly wasn't supposed to include Excalibur or Wolverine or Hellions or whatever X-Men titles you're actually reading that you're enjoying. And then you see this stupid Hellfire Gala event. You're like, why is this even coming in here? For no reason, other than they said, you know what, we need an event. Who's got a storyline that we could bump up to 12 issues? Oh, we got a dinner party. And that's how you get an X-Men event these days. It's not like they were working towards this all along. It's not that they had an end goal in sight and we're all going to get to this one point where we can all cross over and the fruits of all of our labors will be realized and people will be, their minds will be blown. It's like, well, I got a dinner party I'm doing in Marauders. If you guys want to have characters in fancy dresses, welcome aboard. And that's how we got this stupid event. And that's why it feels so stupid. Because it's not supposed to be an X-Men event. It's supposed to be a blip in Marauders, not a big crossover. There's another question. Could each of you tease something about the event? Now this should get you very excited about the Hellfire Gala because they're giving you little teases. This is why you should be interested in this event. And now I didn't take all of them, but I took the pertinent ones. The ones that were the worst. Let's be honest. Except for the last two. I guess those are more serious. Cy Spurrier, hungover and horny. Ooh, have mercy. Lauren, I believe this is one of the associate editors. Maybe it's one of the main editors. That awkward moment where you run into your ex. Awkward face emoji. Well, doesn't that sound tantalizing? Don't you want to invest $60 into that event? Because it's that moment when you run into your ex. $60+ likely. Teeny Howard, breakups and makeups. Ooh. Bow chicka bow bow. They're gonna be doing some stuff. You get what I'm saying? Leah Williams, murder and makeouts. Intriguing. Is this a CW show? Is this what is that show? Charmed. This feels like them talking about the big event in Charmed for the season, not X-Men. Vita Ayala, party hair. So we're going to get some fierce hair across the X-Men line. Al Ewing, Victory demands to see the manager. Victor demands to see the manager. Victory would have been better. There you go. Jonathan Hickman, last issue. I wonder, is he saying that's going to be his last issue on X-Men? I wouldn't be surprised. Or is he saying you must read the last issue because something great's going to happen? We do know there's 3 Red Band issues in this event. In House of X Powers of 10, I believe there were also 3. There were 3 of the biggest revelations that you could have imagined within the X-Men universe, all within a pretty decent event that people enjoyed. It felt like they were earned. The fact that there are 3 Red Band issues in this feels like overkill and a reason. It's just marketing to get you to come back. And because you're remembering what it was like the first time in House of X Powers of 10 when it felt like those things were going to be important. But Jonathan Hickman says either that's his last issue or that last issue is one that you're not going to miss. I'm probably whatever. And then Jordan White, fireworks. Baby, I'm a firework. Do you think that means that Katy Perry is going to be there? Maybe she'll be singing Firework with Dazzler on like the keyboard guitar thingy, right? Could that be what he's saying? What do you think? It's got to be Dazzler, or maybe Jubilee is going to come back with Shogo like riding on her giant dragon baby or something cool like that. Would that be cool? Okay, not really. Maybe if Shogo was wearing like a dragon tux and was shooting fireworks out of his mouth while Jubilee was also shooting fireworks. I wonder if that's what he means. It's got to be something stupid like that, right? He's being cheeky. So that's the interview. There is a link in the video description. You should go read the whole thing for yourself. And definitely have a good laugh when they talk about why it's nice working with Jordan White. Because none of them say because I'm a better writer now. Or I'm better at my craft because of the feedback that Jordan White gave me. Or he's a brilliant mentor. I understand, how Marvel Comics works, or I better understand my place in the comic universe, or I better understand how to execute stories or anything like that. It's like he's super duper nice, and he says no to nothing. That's what I took from it. So I'm sorry, Jordan. I'm sure you're a nice guy, and I've heard pretty decent things about you. It's just as far as you do seem to know, reportedly know a lot of things, but I think you were probably pushover as far as an editor. There's a reason for the most part the entire X-Men line feels watered down and tainted at this point. It is probably your taint that's done it. And nobody even, there's like 2 or 3 people that even argue with me about this stuff anymore. I think for the most part, even the most fervent supporters of what Jonathan Hickman's X-Men line and Dawn of X, Reign of X have all, I think after 10 of Swords, admitted this is dog shit. And I wish I hadn't stuck around for it. That's the video. If you want to see what's wrong with the X-Men line under Jordan White and supposedly Jonathan Hickman, I still don't believe he's there. Go read that interview and you'll see that it's all in their own words, people. I don't even have to really even say anything.